Stewart McDonald.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to follow the honourable gentleman from Abercornway, and although some time has passed since his resignation from government, this is the first chance I think I can get to say to him in the chamber that defence questions just isn't the same without him. But his contribution was indeed a heartfelt and welcome one, as indeed was the tone set by the State Secretary at the beginning of the debate. And of course I should acknowledge, not least because he is a fellow Glaswegian, the tone struck by the Shadow Secretary in his remarks as well. Mr. Speaker, it is somewhat depressing, as the member for Abercornway has said, that we are here having a debate on anti-Semitism twice in less than 12 months. And indeed, we are doing so against a backdrop in this very Parliament of members of Parliament feeling that they have to leave their political party because of anti-Semitism. And although I have got no desire to tread on the broader political grief of the Labour Party, I do just single out, if I might, and I haven't told her I would do this beforehand, the Honourable Lady for Liverpool Wavertree, who on this in particular, having looked at some of the vile poison that she has put up with, I can tell her that she has the solidarity of the benches of the Scottish National Party and the admiration for the way in which she has stood up to it. Mr. Speaker, in the last debate on anti-Semitism, I was able to say at that time, in setting out the history of anti-Semitism in Scotland, that we are one of the few countries, if not the only country, never to have had an anti-Semitic law on the statute book. And indeed, the Declaration of Arbroath, understood to be the most ancient medieval text in existence, actually specifically refers to Jews and Gentiles as equal. And bringing it a bit more up to date, Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to say that the Scottish Government has accepted in full the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism. But I don't want to deceive members into thinking that all is well and rosy north of the border, because the sad fact is that it is not. And I want to thank Joel Salmon from the British Board of Deputies for the briefing he has given me, specifically with some key figures on what is going on in Scotland. 21 incidents, recorded incidents of anti-Semitism in the last year. And whilst that may not seem like a huge number, when you have a Jewish population as small as it is in Scotland, it doesn't feel all that small to them. And I want to just read out a couple of the examples that have happened within the past 12 months, if the House will allow me. A brick was thrown at a glass door of a synagogue, but thanks to their foresight in expecting something like that to happen, they had non-smash coating put onto the glass, so it didn't shatter on that occasion. There was a case of a woman who was converting to Judaism who was spat at in the face whilst being called a Jew while she was on a bus in Edinburgh. And possibly the most vile of the examples that has been sent to me, a Jewish organisation in Scotland received the following email. It read, "I am going to kill every single one of you ugly rat-faced kites. I think I'll use a knife. Then, after I've cut you, I'll shut that dirty, filthy, lying Jew mouth of yours once and for all. Make sure you have a good hiding place ready. I'm going to stick your children into an oven, and then I'm going to serve roasted kite to my dog. Good luck finding you worthless piece of shit." Mr. Speaker, I won't read out the rest of that as though that wasn't bad enough, but a few weeks ago, on the front page of the Sunday Herald, the Scottish Jewish Council had a story on the front page of that national newspaper highlighting the deep problem of anti-Semitism that does too often plague elements of Scottish society. Too many responded to that story, Mr. Speaker, with conspiracy theories, an idea that somehow it couldn't happen in Scotland, or that really the Jews were complaining about nothing. Rubbish. When a community like the Jewish community, as any other minority community, complains about being the victim of hatred and highlights that on the front of a national newspaper, any decent person responds by extending a hand of friendship.
Will you give way?
I certainly will.
I'm very grateful for him giving way. Isn't it also our problem, all of our problem, that sometimes we just say, oh, you know, these sort of things exist, but we do not stand up enough and we do not say loudly enough each time that this is totally unacceptable?
I completely agree with the honourable lady, and I think there's perhaps, as the honourable gentleman from Birmingham alluded to when he intervened on the Secretary at the start of the debate, that there's perhaps a misunderstanding as to how bad it actually is to be called an anti-Semite. I think he's right that the term perhaps feels a little too gentle sometimes, and the Secretary himself said that people should be confronted by the fact that it's Jew hate, and when it's put to people in those stark terms, then I think they can understand exactly what it is they're being accused of. Mr. Speaker, I do just want to draw the House's attention to a school that's actually just outside my constituency. It's actually in the constituency of the honourable gentleman for East Renfrewshire, Calderwood Lodge. And this is a brilliant example of bringing together children of different faiths to better understand people from those faiths. Calderwood Lodge is the first joint Catholic and Jewish school anywhere in the world. And I would encourage all honourable members, if they get the chance, to go and visit. And indeed, in thinking, as the honourable lady just says, how do we get young people to and other people to better understand the problems and understand that this is a problem for all of us, I reflect on what my own mother chose to do. My own mother, when I was in my early teens, gave me a copy of the book The Five Chimneys, written by Olga Lengel, a survivor of Auschwitz. And that book has stayed with me forever. I've read it a great many times. And I'll probably give the book to my own nephew when he's of age to take in the horrors of the Holocaust. And that brings me to something that actually never crossed my mind. Around about this time last year, Mr. Speaker, I was invited very kindly to dinner at my vet's house. My vet, who looks after my cat very well, is himself Jewish. And he invited myself and my partner Gordon to come and have dinner with his family, which we duly did. And when we were there, it hadn't even occurred to me when we get talking about anti-Semitism around the table, that he had to explain to me he hadn't yet told his young daughters what the Holocaust was, and actually didn't quite know how they were going to approach it and at what time. And it wasn't until I was in the car afterwards and I'd said to my partner, how do you even begin to explain to your children that they belong to a faith that has been hunted in the way that Jewish people have over time? Mr. Speaker, I want to draw my remarks to a close because I'm conscious of time and there are a great number of people who want to speak. So I end with this. I was heartened and at the same time quite depressed to see the scenes from Paris last night, where a great number of people took to the Place de la République, uprising against anti-Semitism in France. And the chief rabbi of France said in Paris last night, Chaim Corsa put it perfectly, when he outlined the challenge for all of us, not just here but around the world. He said, who is it that must lower their eyes? Is it the anti-Semite or is it the Jew? Well, let's flip that question. Who is it that gets to raise their eyes? I prefer the days when anti-Semites and racists felt ashamed and they kept their eyes to the ground. But when the Jew raises his eyes, or her eyes, what will she be confronted with? Will she be confronted with love or hate? Friendship or hate? Solidarity or hate? Understanding or ignorance that drives the hate that we are trying to drive out of our society today? So when the Jew looks up at this debate today, although I suspect we will all speak with one voice, as we should, against anti-Semitism, what happens when that mace is lifted? Do we all go back to our constituencies with a genuine hand held out, renewed in its desire for friendship and renewed in its desire to drive out anti-Semitism for society? Or do we have a lot of warm words and not very much in the way of action? I sincerely hope not, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Order. We begin with a 10-minute limit on backbench speeches, but I warn colleagues it won't last, I suspect, for long.